Okay. Hello, everyone. We'll start in a few moments. Perfect. Karina, are we ready to go?
Yes, whenever you're ready.
Perfect. Thank you. Hello and welcome everyone to the ILO's session on centering LGBTIQ people for a human-centered approach for the future of work. My name is Gachatan Sandhu, or Nanu. My pronouns are he, him, or they, them. I work as a program officer at the International Labour Organization's Fundamental and Principles and Rights at Work branch. We've got a great session ahead planned for you for the next 60 minutes. Now, before I introduce my fantastic panelists, let me go into a little bit about what the ILO is and does, and in particular, give you some context about today's session. The ILO, many of you may not know, is a specialized agency of the United Nations. In fact, it even predates the UN system. The ILO is a tripartite agency, and it's very unique in the fact that it brings together governments, employees' organizations, and workers' organizations together to discuss some of the most critical and important issues pertaining to the world of work. The ILO has given perhaps some of the most important conventions to date, such as the 8-hour workday, maternity leave, the ILO's convention on the elimination of the worst forms of child labor. Today's topic as well, the promotion of non-discrimination and in employment and equal opportunity. The world of work is experiencing transformative change. It's driven by technological innovation, demographic shifts, environmental and climate change, and globalization, as well as at a time of persistent inequalities, which have had profound impacts on the nature and future of work, and in particular on the place and dignity of people in it. In response to these challenges, and to mark 100 years since the ILO's founding, a centenary declaration for the future of work was adopted in 2019 at the 108th session of the International Labour Conference. Excuse me. Governments, employers' organizations, workers' organizations came together to put forward a human-centered approach, which focuses on 3 areas of action: increasing investment in people's capabilities, increasing investment in the institutions of work, increasing investment in decent and sustainable work. The declaration calls on the ILO to direct efforts in ensuring equal opportunities and treatment in the world of work, as well as for other persons in vulnerable situations, and achieving gender equality at work through a transformative agenda. This also includes LGBTIQ+ people, who are often part of the most vulnerable and marginalized parts of society. For LGBTIQ people, the future of work provides opportunities to further self-confidence, self-sufficiency, and economic empowerment, which are integral to building resilience and reducing the risk of future exploitation. While significant strides have been taken towards ensuring equality for LGBTIQ+ people, progress remains slow, patchy, and in silos. Efforts have largely focused on the role of businesses and employers, in particular in high-skilled sectors, or in the formal economy, working in IT, finance, banking, or the legal sector. Consequently, the informal economy, as well as sectors such as agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, where most LGBTIQ+ people can be found, are overlooked. Therefore, a human-centered approach will ensure that the future of work is inclusive of all LGBTIQ+ people and included in levels of economic, social, and cultural life for a more sustainable, inclusive world. Now, without better understanding the challenges, well-intentioned innovators, policymakers, and thought leaders risk proposing solutions that are at odds with the challenges and realities LGBTIQ plus people face. Adequately preparing LGBTIQ plus people for the future of work requires addressing the inequalities, power imbalances, and market failures that hold them back from prosperity today. The solution requires an ecosystem of different stakeholder groups to ensure sustainable and full employment of LGBTIQ plus people. Now, with that in mind, we're going to have a great conversation today with our panelists. One of our panelists, Thea Lee, the Deputy Undersecretary for International Affairs of the US Department of Labor, was not able to join us today. And in her place, I'm happy to introduce Mark Mittelhauser, who is the Associate Deputy Undersecretary for International Affairs at the US Department of Labor. In this position, Mark helps to lead the Bureau of International Labor's Affairs, their efforts to promote worker rights and strengthen livelihoods globally. Previously, Mark directed the US Department of State's Office of International Labor Affairs and was an adjunct faculty member of the Foreign Service Institute. Between 1999 and 2002, he served as the US Labor Attaché to Brazil in the US Consulate in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Mark received an MA in International Development from American University and a BS in Economics from Carnegie Mellon University. Welcome, Mark. We also have Sofia de Moraes e Silva, who has graduated from law from UFL, has a master's degree in law from UFL with an exchange program at the University of Cumbria, Portugal. Sofia also has a PhD in law from UFPE and has been a labor prosecutor in Brazil since 2012. She's currently participating in an international exchange program at the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights of the Organization of American States. We also have today as a third panelist, and last by no means least, Christophe Macron, who has more than 20 years of experience in finance, controlling and management acquired in multicultural manufacturing environments. Since July 2021, he is the CFO of Fondation Le Refuge. He's an active member of Autre Cercle, the leading French association on the inclusion of LGBT plus people in the workplace. Since 2016, he's the treasurer and co-leader for international affairs for Autre Cercle. He's very much involved in European and international projects to develop contacts with international LGBT associations to share, learn, and exchange best practices. Christophe is the project leader for Odyssey for Equality, an international project on identifying how the workplace should be for LGBTI people in 2031. And on a personal note, Christophe also admits of being a big fan of the Eurovision Song Contest, and he has successfully climbed Kilimanjaro. Welcome, Christophe. So, my first question is going to be to Mark. Now, Mark, we've seen a great start to the Biden administration, Biden-Harris administration, and it has placed a strong emphasis on promoting diversity inclusion. How is the US Department of Labor working to promote the rights of LGBTIQ plus persons in the world of work through its policies and programs? Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you for the kind introduction and also for the opportunity to be on this panel and to discuss the urgent priorities around promoting the rights of LGBTQI plus persons in the world of work. It's a pleasure to also be on the panel with a friend from Brazil and someone who's done something more impressive than I ever will, climbing Kilimanjaro. As most of you likely know, on day one, President Biden signed an executive order on preventing and combating discrimination on the basis of gender identity or sexual orientation. So clearly this is a key and an early priority for the president for this administration. And with this EO, the Biden-Harris administration called on every US government agency to protect and advance the human rights of LGBTQI plus persons, not only in our program and policy work, but also in our operations and day-to-day interactions. Domestically then, my department, the Department of Labor, is implementing this executive order by working to identify how we can strengthen our existing efforts to protect the rights of LGBTQI+ individuals. Some of the Department of Labor's key mandates in this regard include protecting LGBTQI+ workers and job applicants from discrimination in the federal contractor and Department of Labor workforces. DOL has an office, the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, that requires affirmative action and prohibits federal contractors from discriminating on a number of bases, including sexual orientation and gender identity. In addition, our Civil Rights Center works to protect employees and applicants at the department and in our programs from being harassed, denied employment or promotion, or otherwise subjected to adverse treatment because of their sexual orientation, transgender status, gender identity, and gender expression. And as Nando mentioned, of course, I work in the international agency of our department, and we are working to complement and to support these domestic initiatives in all of our global engagement. So my bureau is called the International Labor Affairs Bureau, or ILAB, and we work internationally to combat discrimination based on the LGBTQI+ status by promoting respect for the fundamental principles and rights at work, working to improve working conditions broadly and access to quality employment, reducing vulnerability to violence and harassment in the world of work, and also preventing and addressing child labor and forced labor. Our international efforts are really shaped by a separate document of the Biden-Harris administration, which is a memorandum on advancing the human rights of LGBTQI+ persons around the world. So this was a sort of a supplemental document that was meant to galvanize and to coordinate all of the United States government's interactions internationally. And this memo called on all US government agencies to operate internationally and focus on key action areas like combating the criminalization of LGBTQI+ status or conduct, advancing non-discrimination, and protecting the human rights of these people through foreign assistance, taking swift and meaningful responses to human rights abuses, and building coalitions of like-minded nations, and engaging international efforts, such as international organizations, such as the ILO in this effort. So we're really doing a top to bottom look at how we can strengthen our work to advance the rights of LGBTQI+ persons in the workplace through our technical assistance and our engagement and our trade policy and research. Our technical assistance, we basically are building the capacity of foreign governments, businesses, and civil society to enhance the workforce of participation, workforce participation among LGBTQI+ persons, and support governments in strengthening and enforcing labor protections. We're also engaging bilaterally with our international counterparts on exchanging good practices and combating discrimination. We are working multilaterally through the G20, the G7, and particularly at the International Labor Organization to address discrimination and challenges to equal opportunity for persons in situations of vulnerability, including LGBTQI+ persons. We're also working at the OECD, where we're supporting a demonstration project to document and quantify the social benefits of full and equitable inclusion of LGBTQI+ individuals in the world of work. And what we're really hoping for there is we're hoping that this project will encourage our colleagues in the OECD governments to support a more robust series of programs at the OECD on LGBTI+ inclusion. Finally, I should say, with respect to our research and reporting, we highlight labor rights violations broadly. And one of the most important sources of information where we help to do this is through the Department of State's Human Rights Report. And this report includes a section on acts of violence and criminalization, again, on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. It covers abuses all over the world, and it's a really important reference point that I would recommend for anyone interested in learning more about these issues and taking action. So as you can tell, we're giving a lot of focus to advancing LGBTQI rights in the workplaces around the world. but we know that the challenges are significant and we all need to do a lot more. And for us as Summit, it's a great opportunity to learn from one another in this regard. So thank you again for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you very much, Mark. And, I'm just sort of impressed and taking a step back. So it's not just, starting at home, but it's really going to those different levels at the international arena, from the G20 to the G7 to OECD, working with the multilateral systems within the United Nations. It's a very multi-pronged approach at different levels. And it looks at sort of mainstreaming and integrating, not just having an add-on approach, but a mainstreaming approach of LGBTIQ plus rights into broader agendas such as trade and other technical assistance programs. Thank you very much for that overview, Mark. Greatly appreciate it. I'll be coming back to you with some more questions later. But in the meantime, I'm going to turn to Sophia. I'm going to go to Brazil now. As you can see, we've got a very international crowd here on panel with you today. So, Sophia, many of us in the audience, as they may not be familiar with the ILO, they may not be familiar with MPT or the Labour Prosecution Office. Can you just tell us very quickly, what is MPT? What work is it doing to support LGBTIQ plus rights of LGBTIQ plus people in Brazil? Over to you, Sophia. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandu. Good afternoon. Thank you all the audience, the other panelists. My name is Sophia. I'm a labor prosecutor in Brazil, and it's a great pleasure for me to participate in this event, and especially in this dialogue about employability of LGBTIQ plus people. Well, the Brazilian Labor Prosecution Office, the MPT in Portuguese, Ministério Público do Trabalho, has the constitutional mission to promote and enforce labor legislation, the context of companies, public employers, and in the workplace. So the MPT defends the labor rights of collective workers, groups, classes, and categories. For example, if someone is discriminated for being an immigrant, it involves all workers, all immigrants. If the company forces someone to work on dangerous conditions without personal protection equipment, it may be a collective problem of workers from the company. So the worker can issue a complaint against your employer on MPT's website or personally. So the complaints are investigated, and if the investigation proves that companies have violated rights, they will be forced to correct the situation immediately and will be fined. So the MPT may also sue a company, the government also, and because they violated rights now and they refuse to observe the law. Its goal is to improve the labor relations and promote better working conditions for all, especially those in a state of vulnerability, such as people subjected to slave labor, child labor, and other types of undignified working conditions. Therefore, fighting against discrimination in labor relations is included in the goals of the Labor Prosecutor Office strategy planning. The amount derived from MPT's judicial and extrajudicial action can be destined to projects that benefit the society. So, the Brazilian labor prosecution, in partnership with other institutions, body, and civil society, has projects for the employability of LGBTIQ plus population in Brazil, which aims to empower these people in vulnerable situations, especially transgender people, as well as trained professionals from human resources departments and managers about equality. In addition, the project seeks to raise awareness and sensitize the labor prosecution office, own employees, and society about the importance of diversity in the labor market. Within the National Employability Project for LGBTIQ plus population, the project Employability of Trans People Kitchen and Voice has been developed. The joint initiative of Brazilian labor prosecution and the International Labor Organization promotes the inclusion of LGBTIQ plus people in the formal labor market. This project began in 2017 to provide professional training for people in vulnerable situations and for victims of human trafficking or other forms of labor exploitation. With the COVID-19 pandemic, the project needed to change its strategy and methodology to use digital media in distance learning, including professional training. The project has benefited during the pandemic 108 Brazilian transgender people so far, providing them with financial support for 3 months and meetings on various issues to prepare them for a decent job. The Kitchen Voice project educated the first group at the end of 2017 and managed to bring about 7% of participants into jobs offered by a network of partner companies. Since it started, more than 500 people across the country have benefited. Therefore, the initiative aims to promote access to decent and productive work. If you have time, Sandy, I would like to show a video about the project that only lasts about 2 minutes. I think he will try to pass the video. Sandu? Pardon. Yeah, I don't know if you have a problem with our guest.
Seems that way.
Nanu, can you hear us?
Yes, I think it.
Yeah, maybe I can quickly introduce myself, Sophia, while in the meantime. So let me quickly then introduce myself and the L'Autre Cercle. So I'm also very happy to be with all of you today. And so here I'm calling from France, from Europe. And I would say by profession, I work in finance, but here I'm going to be talking about my volunteer life. And I'm a volunteer at L'Autre Cercle, which is an NGO looking after the inclusion of LGBTIQ+ people in the workplace. So we are very dedicated into the workplace. And what we wanted to share with you today is that we just did a big project, an international project called Odyssey for Equality, because really what I've heard so far from Sophia and Mark is we really need to work on in an international level and with all the players, all the stakeholders to take them with us in this journey to have a better inclusion in the workplace. And what we really wanted to do at L'Autre Cercle is to bring together people from companies, so I would say from the private sector, but also people from NGOs. So we really want to have a mix of people from different backgrounds and from different nationalities, from different countries. So we gathered around 100 volunteers in this project coming from 21 countries. And we really had people from Canada, US, Mexico, and Latin America, Brazil, Colombia, and then also from Europe. We had from Africa, we had South Africa represented, and we had Lebanon, and then we went also to Asia with China, Thailand, Hong Kong, Australia, India, and so on. But what we noted when we wanted to build this team of 100 volunteers is do you have an echo? Okay. Can you? Is it fine now? Okay, thank you. So the challenge for us was to find also people from different countries, because we wanted to have a look to be diverse as possible. But one of the difficulties we had is obviously in some countries it was difficult to have actually people, because only in those 21 countries we had, it is 21 countries where actually there is an LGBT plus associations in place, because we know in some countries they still don't have yet LGBT plus organization. So we know that yes, we try to have this brainstorming in this project from those countries, but we know, okay, we're not covering the full scope, the full world. And the question was actually in this project was how the workplace should be in 2031. So we really looked at 10 years ahead of us, and we were really like, okay, close your eyes and think now we are in 2031, what we would like to say about the inclusion of LGBT plus people in the workplace. So then we divided the people into 6 streams, and each of them, they work in a specific streams. And I think later I can share, some of the outcome, and because we really want to say like, and we did this, we showed already the outcome in Copenhagen during the World Pride in August, where we had a session where we really said to the people, okay, close your eyes and think you are really now in 2031 and how you should see the workplace to be. And obviously in this journey, ILO, the UN are fully important stakeholder to be with us. So because we need to work with all the private sector companies, we need to work with NGOs, we need to work with politics, we need to work with the Council of Europe, we need to work with OCDE, it has been mentioned, and so on. So we try to cover many aspects of it. And I think in short, that's what I wanted to say first now about this project, Odyssey for Equality. Thank you. So, but I don't know if now, Nanu, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. My apologies, I'm having some technical issues. My laptop or my Zoom on my laptop, only my Zoom on my laptop has now failed. So my sincere apologies to you all. I really wanted to show that video on the ILO's Kitchen and Voice program. It gets me emotional each time I watch it, and it really highlights the program. So, but Christophe, a big thanks to you for stepping in and sharing a little bit about what Autre Circle is doing and what it's all about. Sophie, I'm now going to come back to you as well. We often hear questions, or we often hear very catchy phrases right now since COVID, or even since the SDGs. We keep on hearing building back better, leaving no one behind, and even a human-centered approach. But what do these phrases really mean for LGBTIQ plus people? If you could give us an answer, 3.5 minutes each, both of you. Thank you.
That's an excellent question. Thank you. These expressions carry a very clear message now. All people are human rights holders and therefore not objects of violation and discrimination. LGBTIQ plus people are entitled to equality and respect, and to build their policies, claims, and actively participate in decision-making regarding issues that involve their community and their rights. The phrase "leave no one behind" besides is recognizing that there is a common struggle also recognize that it's a multiplicity of individuals, no? With their most diverse characteristics and diversities that fight the same struggle and must work together. Now, equality of opportunity and treatment allows all individuals to fully develop their talents and skills according to their aspirations, preference, and to enjoy equal access to employment as well as equal working conditions. To achieve full freedom from discrimination in employment and occupation, the mere removal of discriminatory practice does not sufficient. No, it is also necessary to promote equality of opportunity and treatment in their workplace at all stages of the employment relationship, including recruitment, retention, promotion, and termination practice, remuneration, access to vocational trainings, and skills development. Thus, I think, of course, every human being is equal under the law and has a right to equal protection against any form of discrimination and intolerance in any sphere of life, public or private. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophia. I seem to have brought my laptop back. If we have time, I will come back and try and show that video, Sophia. So I think it's very important that we show what the ILO is doing with regards to Kitchen and Voice. So Christoph, building back better, leaving no one behind. What does it really mean for LGBT, and does it really mean anything for LGBTIQ plus people?
Yes, I mean, on this one, what I like to share is, really to leave no one behind. Whenever we have those nice expression or wording and so on, which are very catchy and so on, we need really, I think in English we say to walk the talk. So we really need to leave no one behind. And really, even in the LGBTIQA plus community or people, we should not only, sometimes we focus, maybe I'm looking from an European angle, is maybe we focus on the lesbian, on the gay, there's a lot that has been done on the trans, but what about the intersex people and all the non-binary people? So we really need to, like when I see just simply like that, just to put the pronouns, I've seen, okay, it's coming most of the time, it's coming either from more like the Anglo-Saxon world or US or the UK, but we need, like even in France, it's not yet fully used. If you look in LinkedIn, just look at the profile and you'll see people putting their pronouns are more people with an international background, I would say. So when we say we leave no one behind, is we need really now to move to do more for, I would say, for intersex people or non-binary people or people questioning, because we need to have this intersectional approach. We need to talk about intersectionality because we are all unique. We all, having differences. We all, that's we all, diverse. So we need to look at everybody as someone being unique. So we cannot just look at the L or the G or the B. So for me, it's no one behind is really to take everyone on board. And there's a lot to be done from the NGO world, but it has to be supported, yes, by companies, by the private sectors, and it has to be supported by the, I would say, international organization like ILO or the UN or the Council of Europe or OCDE or other ones.
Thank you very much. And I seem to have restored full laptop control now. And Christoph, I just want to go back to your points as well. I really like the fact that, when we talk about leaving no one behind in the future of work, it is really no one. It's not just gay. It's not just gay people. It's not just lesbians. It's not just trans, but every single part of the LGBTIQ plus communities. And I think also, very important for our audience who are watching tonight, who are maybe very Anglo-Saxon, North American, that it's not just it's a North American issue or European, but it has to be a very global effort. We've got to take these practices and adapt them to different contexts and different cultures as well. So, are we using pronouns in different parts of the world too? So thank you very much for that. Yes, sorry.
If I may, Nanu, just maybe because I was kind of not surprised. I don't know if it's the right word, but I was recently to a Pride march in France. And you really see, the work in 10 years or in 20 years really have to change, because when you see the young generation, I was kind of amazed. myself, I'm not young anymore, but when I was looking at the young ones, the march, I mean, there's more and more queer or gender fluid or questioning people, and more and more. So the workplace, the companies or institutions, then they will have to accept all. I mean, to take all those these people and so on. So no one is just like cisgender person and white and male and so on. So it's the workplace has a lot to do to welcome all those the young people. But I was really struck by this the number of non-binary or queer or questioning people.
Indeed, and I think what you raised there is a very good point. The future of work, and as we prepare for the future of work, has got to be intergenerational as we grow older as well, as an aging workforce, which the ILO also talks about. But what does it mean for LGBTIQ plus people who are aging? What does it mean also for young people who are coming into the workplace and taking their identities and rightfully owning them? And how do we have a world of work which is adaptable to the living realities, which can, and can our institutions that govern the world of work also adapt to those living realities? We're seeing more and more identities come into place: non-binary, queer, intersex, asexual. So how is the world of work preparing for them? And it's got to be something that takes into account of the lived realities that we have. Now, Mark, I'm going to turn to you. So from your perspective, from the International Labour Affairs Bureau at the Department of Labour, what do you think are the most significant gaps that remain to be addressed? And how can we collectively work together with the international community to support a better future of work? Thank you.
So it's a great question. And, I think as we think about leaving nobody behind and building back better, it's important to keep in mind that, that the starting point for many in the LGBTQI plus community is dire in terms of the world of work. And that when you look at the landscape across the globe right now, you see that there are really many urgent and significant challenges that these workers in particular face, not only with the future of work, but also with the present of work around the world. You can see that many countries lack legal protections for these workers. And even more concerning, many countries actually have in place discriminatory legal frameworks that criminalize LGBTQI plus conduct or status. And in some cases, they even suppress advocacy for the relevant human rights around it. So I think one of the other points that's really interesting to bring out important is also the diversity within the community. And, in recognizing that there are different labor market outcomes and labor market challenges, and they can vary also based on race, on gender, on age, on disability, and other markers of identity and of difference. For example, data shows that lesbians, because of the intersections of sexism and homophobia, they fall behind in leadership and in compensation. Transgender people, especially transgender women of color, experience particularly high levels of violence, harassment, and discrimination in the labor market. And it's also really important to note that many of these violations go unreported and not acknowledged. So it's incredibly important to call attention to these abuses and to address them wherever we can. And I think it's important that all of us do their part. I've talked a little bit about what governments are doing. I know there are a lot of employers listening today as well and involved. And it's important to note that they also have a key role to play in countering the biases that are so pervasive in the labor market, and also modeling the non-discrimination policies and inclusion practices that they should be emulating in law and in practice. Employers, in our view, can also work collaboratively with other employers and with key stakeholders to call on governments and to push us to protect the human rights of LGBTQI plus persons and their labor rights, particularly in those countries where these rights are at risk. And you obviously, Nano, coming from the ILO, also know the importance of engaging with trade unions and with other organizations, worker organizations. And we do this quite a bit. And they really also can play a critical role by helping to give LGBTQI plus people a voice at work, an important voice at work, and by advocating for strengthened legal protections. In particular, we've seen how collective bargaining agreements between unions and employers can be powerful vehicles for protecting a range of rights, including promoting LGBTQI plus rights at work. So we and iLab partner frequently with the private sector as well as with worker rights organizations to advance labor rights around the world. And we're really working to expand the support to the protection of LGBTQI plus rights, which I don't think has received nearly enough attention in international engagement around labor rights. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the Biden administration has really put the rights of LGBTQI plus persons at the center of its work to promote human rights and to promote inclusion. And so we're working within the administration to find new ways of making progress on the challenges that we face, both within the United States and around the world. So we would really welcome the opportunity to work with and learn from businesses and from the many other participants here at the Out and Equal Summit to identify how we can collectively support the advancement of LGBTQI rights in the world of work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I really like those points, especially highlighting the importance of intersectional and multiple grounds of discrimination. It's not just about having access to the workplaces, but it's also when you're at work, the safety, violence and harassment you talked about. And interestingly, picking up on that discussion, the ILO, we just, together with member states and governments, member states and employers and workers organizations came together to draft the latest ILO Convention on Violence and Harassment in the World of Work. So we have Convention 190 there. And then the other issue that's very close to my heart is equal pay of work of equal value, which the US government has recently joined the Equal Pay International Coalition. So yes, this is great, but we also need an intersectional approach. So the gaps can only be addressed if we take an intersectional lens. And it works through non-discrimination policies. And, quite rightly, employers' organizations, trade unions must call on governments to do more, to provide those enabling, what we call in the ILO, enabling environments for solidarity. And the key thing here as well, let's talk about collective bargaining agreements and how they can be used, not just nationally, but internationally too, where you have global or international collective bargaining agreements or frameworks as well. So I'm going to move on to my next question, and I'm going to come back to Sophia. Sophia, you work at the national level and you see what is not working. So you see companies or complaints coming in, this is going wrong. But what I'd like to hear from you is what does work? What are the good practices and examples that you have found to work that ensure that LGBTIQ plus people can be centered in the future of work?
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the question. Brazilian research reveals that in my country, for example, 38% of Brazilian companies deny LGBTIQ plus people access to management positions. 43% LGBT people state that they have experienced prejudice at work. And ANTRA, that is a national association of travesty and transsexual, state that 90% of travesty and transgender population, unfortunately, still use prostitution as a source of income and possibility of subsistence due to difficult of insertion in the formal labor market. So as a labor prosecutor, I understand that the best practices are those that seek to sensitize society and companies about the equality issue, especially the human resources sectors. In addition, it's important to articulate it with social movements for the inclusion of LGBTIQ plus people and to organize training and capacity buildings. In addition to these initiatives like Kitchen Voice, that I hope you can pass the video, the Brazilian Labor Prosecution Office was one of the first federal bodies in Brazil to issue an ordinance, like a rule, respecting the social name of transgender people when you use the restrooms according to the personal gender identity. In addition, it produces publicity materials and prepared a technical note to guide the agency and in defend the rights of LGBTIQ population in the labor contest. Moreover, as a labor prosecutor, I observe that there is still a great difficulty in accessing the formal labor market, especially for transgender people. Also, I observing the following problems regarding the protection of LGBTIQ plus population in the labor market, the psychosocial risks, no? So it's important to provide a work environment that protects not only the physical, no, but the psychosocial health of LGBTIQ plus employee. To ensure this, the employee should have a strategy to prevent psychosocial harm and to apply sanctions for offenses. Another thing that we observe is about the social name. That's still a big problem. So the employer should use the employee's social name. This applies to all transgender and as well as all those whose identified documents do not necessary. So the employee should use the social name, for example, the registration of data and any communication related to the employee, including their email address, job description, username, on computer system, registration in events. And we, like in our job, being a labor prosecutor, a lot of times we need to say the basic for the companies like that, respect the social name. About the same thing about the bathrooms used. Transgender people are free to access gender as the bathrooms according to their gender identity. Another problem that we always have to struggle is about the parental leave. LGBTIQ plus employees should always benefit from legally granted parental leave, either for the birth or adoption of a child. And other big problem that we always observe is about the violence and the harassment. The company should adopt measures to prevent LGBTQ plus employees, outsourced employees, interns, or clients from being directly or indirectly exposed to violence and harassment and victims of transphobia, LGBT phobia, sexual or moral harassment based on sexual orientation or gender identity. On this topic, it's very important that the countries sign and apply the ILO Convention 190, which mentions gender-based protection against the violence and harassment and can be applied to LGBTIQ plus population. I think it's necessary to share and expand good practices in the area, as well as consolidate strategic actions that can favor the dignified inclusion of this part of the population. Thank you.
Sophia, thank you for that very, very detailed and comprehensive answer. I think, it doesn't, you've highlighted some key points, about addressing some of the gaps on what does work. It doesn't just start at, once you've entered the workplace. It's not just about your, the bathrooms or your name. It goes deeper than that. It goes on into ensuring that the environment itself in the workplace is enabling. So we then therefore need to look at a little bit further beyond equality policies, looking at occupational safety and health. Are those policies and legislations, are they inclusive as well, that safeguard the protection of LGBTIQ plus people? So we've now not just talked about equal pay for work of equal value for LGBTI plus people for the future. We're now just not talking about equality. We're not just talking about trade. We're now also talking about occupational safety and health as well. And not just from a violence perspective, but psychosocial health as well. Thank you very much for those points, Sophia. And great work. I hope to get around to showing the video. But before I do, I've got one last question from Christoph. Christoph, You represent Autre Cercle and, bringing all these companies together to advocate and champion and encourage them to do more on LGBTIQ plus rights in France and even globally. You're promoting this. But tell me, based on the work that you've undertaken at Autre Cercle, what can governments and employers and workers organizations do? So trade unions or chambers of commerce, chambers of industry such as AFL-CIO, USCIB or AFCIO or other trade unions in the world. What can they do to ensure that the future of work centers LGBTIQ plus people? And more importantly, and equally to that, what would be the role of ILO and other entities in that sort of, what can we do to help?
Thank you, Daniel, for the question. What I would say, I mean, for me, the thing that came to my mind on this question is really to lead by example. I mean, for me, I will expect from all those government, employer, organization or trade union, they have themselves to lead by example, to show, I mean, they cannot just only promote diversity and inclusion, but they need also to show in their own institution, they need to be to be example. So that's what we discussed during this project. Is I think there's already a lot of laws and charters and label and text and reports. I mean, when you start looking on, I mean, because we did it, and when you start looking on the internet and to find, I mean, you'll find so many great reports and great laws and label and and charters and so on. But I think now for the next 10 years, I mean, now we need really to see how we can actually execute those and really act. And for me, it's really to lead by example. And I would say also is companies or institutions or ILOs or UN and so on also need to maybe use this methodology of plan PDCA, plan, do, check, act. So you really, as I said previously, you walk the talk. So you said what you wanted. You say what you're saying. You're saying. You do what you say. And it's really and then you need to measure also if you're making any progress. So we need to put in place somehow some measurements. I know it's not easy in different countries because of the different laws, because of confidentiality, personal data, and so on. But we need to find ways to measure. I mean, it's not because I'm in finance, but you need to measure things. You need to report on things, and you need to see the progress on things. So for me now, the next years will be more on how we can measure and really progress, and that it's not just staying at the level of nice report or talk or conferences, but then it's really embedded into the everyday life in each individuals, whatever we do every day with simple things, how we changing the world. And for me, we need always in those government or employer that or ourselves as individual is we are a force to drive the change. I mean, we need all the fact that we are unique as being LGBT plus person. I mean, we went through, we have our history, we have our culture, our background, but we should all take it as a force to drive really the change, to be part of the change, really. So that's what we see now. I mean, it should come more from the I would say from the everyday or from the individuals. And one more thing, maybe on the just on the what ILO or the UN can do is, I mean, we will be very happy. We discussed this during the project. Is we know we have those 17 SDGs, those Sustainable Development Goals. We were discussing, should we have an 18 one and for LGBT plus dimension, or should LGBT, because today LGBT is not mentioned as such in none of those 17. So we hope whenever they will renew the Agenda 2030, or when they will renew the SDGs, that it will be explicitly written LGBT plus. We can discuss and on the letters, but that's its sexual orientation and the gender identity and sex characteristics are clearly mentioned and explicitly mentioned, because we all know when it is written, when it is when we give a name to something, then it exists, and then we are here, and then we can move on. So we hope, maybe in 10 years, if we are now in 2031, yes, when we look at those SDGs, then it will be explicitly mentioning, because it covers all the countries. So we need to be, I would say also, institution or transnational institution in way, maybe not only in LGBT dimension, need to be bold, need to be courageous, and need to be really go beyond, I mean, just politics. I know it's not easy, but we need to be bold in what we do.
Thank you very much, Christoph. And I really like that answer. You know, we need to put together measurement frameworks. We need to walk the talk, another catchy phrase, but we certainly do. We need to lead by example, whether we're government, workers, organizations, employers. We need to show how it's done. Also, we need to have an accountability framework as well. And also, you know, facing some of the challenges that we even have in regions like the EU with the GDPR, you know, how we come across those barriers as well. I was recently in a workshop, and I can share with you where, you know, look, it talks about aggregate, you know, with the, you know, GDPR, you cannot collect you know, personal data, but you can collect mass data, you know, if it's anonymized. So there's options there too. And when it comes to, you know, Christopher, you were talking about the SDGs. I can tell you now, and happily tell you, that there are civil society organizations actively working every year to ensure that Leave No One Behind means leave no one behind, and they're engaging at the high level political forum to ensure that language is integrated into the SDG reporting. I remember, you know, a civil society organization from a member state reached out to ensure that how they could include LGBTI issues in their SDG 8, which is on the world of work, how they can include LGBTI people in their reporting on SDG 8. So it's very interesting that there are already attempts made, but perhaps in the future, we can then also see that language already being included. Now, I've got 5 minutes left. I'm going to quickly show you this video. I hope it works this time. So bear with me. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to come here and click this and this, and I hope I'm back with you afterwards. And we're going to go full screen and play.
No começo vocês vão ter pouco de dificuldade, mas é aprendizado de vocês, tá? Não precisa acertar sempre.
Okay, it looks like that video is not going to show. Stop sharing. Hello, I'm sorry. So I think that video was not showing for technical reasons, more issues there. But that was just an example of one of the ILO projects that we actually do have. It's called Kitchen and Voice. We have worked with trans persons to enable them to move from the informal economy into the formal labor markets. We can share the video link here. That's a good point, actually. Here you go. I'm going to take it and copy it across to everyone in the meeting. And in fact, it's one of our successful projects that we piloted with MPT. And I can also announce here that today, actually in July this year, with thanks to the US Department of State, we are now scaling up that project and growing it into other regions and other sectors, and also supporting the government in the implementation of one of the very few national action plans on the employment of LGBTIQ plus people. In that program, we're also mainstreaming or building relationships with trade unions and with employers' organizations, as well as businesses. We have now 2 minutes left. Any last words from our speakers? I'm going to turn to Sophia. Would you like to say any quick recap of today's, what is your main highlights from today's discussion?
Thank you. Thank you. I hope all the audience can watch the video after. I think it's in Portuguese, but it's It's always small words in Portuguese. I think the image is more important now. The emotion that video showed is important. So I think it was wonderful to stay here today. I think to effectively promote the decent work of LGBTIQ community. It's important in my country, I think in the other countries that I follow, it's important more statistical data is needed to find out the extent of discrimination they face and different forms it takes. Therefore, the international articulations, it's extremely important both to remedy some of these existing gaps now and to develop public policies that can combat, articulate, and systematize the actions to ensure equality and to promote the human rights of LGBTIQ plus people, especially those in the situation of social vulnerability. So I really appreciate to be here today. I thank you so much for everybody, and then maybe in another opportunity we can talk and dialogue more about this subject and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. Mark, very quickly, 3 key words from today's session. What would you like to take away with you?
3 key words. I would say diversity of recognizing, I guess these aren't 3 key words, 3 key ideas if I can. Recognizing the diversity of the impact across the LGBTQI community and really taking that into account. Second one is, I think as Sophia mentioned, the importance of data, the importance of learning more about what the challenges are and really confronting them head on. And thirdly, I would say the importance of all of us working together. You know, I think there are a lot of opportunities, we see a lot of creativity, but we know that these are deep-seated challenges, and without cooperation, we're not going to get anywhere.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. Christoph, very, very quickly, got 10 seconds.
Yeah, I would just take also Mark's word. I mean, yeah, we need to work all together, the different stakeholders and partners, and that's how we will succeed. And then for me, it's to be bold for the next years, really to, and then to lead by example and also to measure our different progress. And
Perfect.
That's really short.
Thank you. Diversity, intersectionality, measurement are the keys for centering LGBTIQ plus people in the future of work. We all must come together at different levels, be at the international, national level, or at the local level. Thank you very much for your participation today. My heartfelt thanks to Mark, to Christoph, and to Sophia, and my thanks to Out and Equal as well for hosting us on this session. I would like to also apologize for the technical issues. They couldn't be avoided, but thank you for your patience in supporting us tonight. Big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you.